I'm assuming you didn't have a chance to watch too much of the Yankees-Mets series this weekend with your electronic music festival.
I did see some of it. Absolutely. I was on top of it, watching some of the series. But I was not sitting at the edge of my seat for it by any means.
Okay. So, obviously you got to see what happened. You got to see the aftermath. What were your immediate thoughts when you found out about the booing of Juan Soto in the Bronx? What did you think about the way he handled it? Give me your insight.
My insight to it. So, a couple things with it. One, Yankee fan, do whatever you want to do. If you feel score, I liked them turning around. I like that. That to me is a proper way of doing it. You're taking what's fun about Yankee Stadium and turning it on its heels and kind of like, hey, like you turn your back on us, we're going to turn your back on you.
Do you know whose idea that was?
I don't know.
That was Tiki Barber, the former running back of the New York Giants. He had that idea and talked about it on his show on WFAN.
Yeah, it's a great idea. That is a proper way of doing it. I do not. When a player is a rent-a-player and they get traded for knowing he's going to be a free agent, don't boo him. Like, don't boo him. What is the point of booing him? He did exactly and everything you ever expected out of him. He came in, played the role, was Robin to Aaron Judge's Batman, and killed it. And then played free agency, which is exactly what he said he was going to do the whole time. And he went to the place where he wanted to go or his family wanted to go, whatever. It ended up being great. Don't boo the player when they're a free agent. They're not a Yankee for life. It's not like he was a Yankee for life and the Yankees have been offering him every single year and he just keeps saying no and no and no. And then he scorns them and takes less money somewhere else. Yeah, boo that guy. 100%. He's not that. So I don't understand the booing. The booing is pissed off Yankee fans just thinking they're bigger than baseball. Like, oh, we're better than everybody else. If you turn your back on us, he didn't turn your back on you. He just chose somebody else. That's my thing about it. He didn't. These guys in this situations don't turn their backs on anybody. They're just choosing what they want to do. That's not turning your back because there's still 29 other teams. Then if you pick the Yankees, you turn his back on 29 other teams. And anyways. So I don't understand the booing, but I love the turning around. I thought that was great. And then obviously you want him to play better. You want him to have a little bit more of an impact on the series. One hit in the entire series is not what you're paying Juan Soto for. And I'm going to say this right now, I do still think the reaction and the overreaction of Juan Soto and how he's been doing on this season is way too much. Stop asking him about New York Yankees. New York media, shut up. Just shut your face because you're making such a big deal out of it as if he wanted to be a Yankee more than anything else. And like that, like, okay, if he would have been chose the Yankees and he's hitting 200 like he is right now, would you have been happy? No, you'd be slamming him. So stop slamming him that he wanted to be a Yankee, but he's not. He chose the Mets and you're trying to find all these other things. And I even read they're trying to find other BS stories about him taking private jets and not with the team. And that's the problem with New York media is they start taking and just lying, and then they make everybody has to ask him the question. They're literally making up stories now and then saying, what do you think of this? That is bullshit media. And that's the problem. That's my biggest problem with some of the New York media is they will literally lie to your face, and then somebody else get to ask you the question with a little grin on it, going, hey, what do you think of that private jet? And then they get to ask your teammates. And that's a problem. Okay, he's not playing great, but they're still killing it. They're still 10 games over 500. Yes, in second place, who cares? They're 10 games over 500, and they're doing everything they could possibly do. Imagine when he starts playing good. Jeez, stop trying to rock this ship and wake up the bear.
And then you have that jackass, that arrogant, pompous face of the Yankees broadcaster, Michael Kay, sitting there, he really wanted to be a Yankee, and my sources are telling me he really wanted to be a Yankee, and he's completely unhappy. He doesn't have that top step enthusiasm. First of all, the only person that knows if he really wanted to be a Yankee was Juan Soto, and maybe his agent, and maybe, just maybe, his mom. Like, those are the only three people that if they came up to me and said, this is exactly what the situation was, and other than Juan Soto, I wouldn't believe it 100% anyway. And then you're sitting there and you're saying, oh, he wanted to be a Yankee and he's not happy. You have no idea what is going on inside of Juan Soto's head. The problems that come with signing that contract are something that you and I will never understand. And you understood it to a certain extent way more than I would. You didn't make hundreds of millions of dollars in baseball, but you made enough where people were coming up to you and asking you for money and asking you for help. Can you imagine if you signed a contract for $765 million, how many people would have came up to you and asked you for money?
Yes, it would have been absolutely insane. But to bring it back to Michael Kay, the thing about he wanted to be a Yankee, but his family said, yes, no. Just no. Where he wanted to go is where he was going to go. And like being a Yankee or being a Met, it doesn't matter. Like the families don't care. You're a New Yorker. Like if it's between those two, it's legitimately the money. And yes, he had a great season, but maybe he had a really bad experience when he was at the Nationals or the Padres in New York at some point, and he hated the Yankee fans. And then who knows? But maybe he had a bad negotiation with the Yankees. Maybe they kind of pissed him off a little bit. Maybe the numbers didn't quite add up, and what you're hearing from the Yankees isn't actually what was said, to his agent, and there just wasn't something enough there. But at the same time, the Mets have been a great choice for him, and he's killing it. Like the Mets are killing it, which is all that really matters. The Mets are killing it with him, and the Yankees are killing it without him. This has been a win-win for both teams, both situations. Like, I get it. Cody Bellinger at the end of the day is not as good as Juan Soto, but he's playing just as good.
And before the season started, that after 47 games, Juan Soto would have 8 home runs, 20 RBIs, hitting .246. What would your reaction would have been?
Oh, crazy. No way. I don't believe you.
Really? Because if you had told me...
After how many games?
After 46 games.
I would have the 246 would have surprised me, and I thought it would probably have 10, but the 246 is the number that surprised me, and really where I'm seeing it is like on base and stuff like that. Yeah,
the on base percentage. But here's the thing:
that's where I'm really seeing it.
But as you know, there's a lot of pressure with a contract like that. So if you had told me, you know what, he's going to start off a little rough. He's hearing it from both ends. Yankee fans hate him. Mets fans are having problems because they're hearing the Yankee fans, and they're starting to, get on him a little bit because he hasn't lived up to the $750 million. All that I think is true. I wouldn't have had a problem if you told me, he's hitting 246 after, a month and a half, because it takes a little time. You look at some of the guys who have come to the New York Mets over the years, and I've seen it firsthand. Lindor, was he any good his first year? He was okay.
Oh, God, no. He was horrible.
He was okay, actually, but he got a lot more.
Compared to what they were paying him for and what he had done the year before.
Okay, yeah. Mike Piazza, when he came over here, they were booing Mike Piazza. Carlos Beltran had a garbage first year, his year. So I'm not going to have that much of an issue.
Soto's never been below 400 in on-base percentage. That's the one that hits me.
Right.
Like he's been 240 in average before, but he has 400 with on base, 452 slugging, and that was his lowest OPS of his entire career until now at 850. And that was a down year for him in 22. Yeah. But so that's something that we're not sitting here and looking at going we can't have that. That's not normal in that sphere. And he's just doing that right now.
For me, the bottom line, what I want to end this segment with is, unless Juan Soto comes out and says this is the truth, I'm not believing any of it, because you have no idea what's going on inside of a player's head. Do you remember that interview we did with Griffey years ago when we talked about his father having cancer?
And his mom.
And his mom having cancer, and he went through a terrible slump, and nobody knew about it. And people were sitting there trying to figure out what's wrong with Griffey and giving him grief because he was like 0 for 40 at one point. You have no idea what's going on in these players' heads.
And he's still 24th in on-base percentage, and that's where I'm looking at and going that's where I really see it, and that sucks, and he's still 24th.
Yeah. So for all of you, are you worried about him at the end of the day? Are you worried that Juan Soto's not going to have a good year?
Okay, I'm worried that I know he isn't having a good start, but I'm not worried about him having a good year. I think he's going to end up at the very worst. You're going to look at it and go, okay, he was pretty good. And then then they build the rapport, and Lindor's gonna be around a while. Now Alonso's gonna be around. Okay, give me Soto, and like that. The core of this team is gonna be around. Then you're like, okay, that's when it gets dangerous.
Telling you right now, I'll guess the numbers, and we'll look back at this show, and we'll see how close I am. He's gonna end up hitting about 270, 28 home runs, and 80 RBIs with a 390 on-base percentage. He's going to be a little lower than usual, but not that much lower. He's going to have a month where he's just going to go off, and we're going to say, oh, this is Juan Soto.
I believe it, 100%.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you have good people around you, and I'm sure he has amazing people around him, which makes him a much better player. And if you want to be a much better player, who should you have around you? Mr. 69, David Ardsma.